You might be wondering, why do you have these four saws together and what might they have in common? We've got a Poulan Pro 325, Jonsered 590, that's a 55, and that is a 50. When it comes to those four saws, the parts for all of them come out of the part and 5,000 parts bin. So what you might not know is these two saws, especially the 50 and the 51, 55, which are later versions of it, were parts bin saws, and they're built out of the partner 5,000 parts bin. And while I don't have an actual 5,000 here, that 50, for all intents and purposes, is a 5,000, has a 5,000 top end on it. So the crankshaft, the flywheel, the clutch, and the top end off of that saw directly interchange onto this chassis. The 50 uses the same top end as the partner 500. The 5,000 top end, Husky didn't use it. The 55, that's the partner 540 top end. This Jonsered 590, this is a unique cylinder to Jonsered. It's 45mm closed port. There is a closed port 55 that uses the same bore jug, but it is not the same jug. And there's two versions of this Jred jug. This here 325, that is a partner 5500. And that is a 46mm bore, so it's the same displacement as a 55, but that is a factory closed port saw. While I posted bits and pieces in the past of my trials and tribulations with that particular 55, trying to make it run with the 254, recently I got to the point where I decided, you know what, I'm going to get a hold of the factory cylinders that work on this thing, and I know they're going to be way better than anything aftermarket. And I started looking for cylinders, and it turns out I ended up with saws. I also took things a little bit far. That 50, that has a custom-built full-circle crankshaft that I built myself. That is a partner 5,000 top end on it. I did not machine that cylinder yet. It's still at 46,000 squish. This 55 has the highway closed port jug, 028 super piston, 20 thou squish. The thing makes 260 pounds of compression. I'm still not happy with how it runs. These two are built 100% to stock. I tore them down, went through them, made sure that they're healthy, but they are 100% stock saws. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to run them all with 325, and then I'm going to run them all with 3/8. And we'll see what likes what, and what saw runs the best out of these. And I don't think it's going to be that highway cylinder saw. I really don't have faith in it. For the 325 chain, both of these saws have new out-of-the-box loops. Neither one of them has been sharpened, so I'm not going to bother swapping these around. For the 3/8 stuff, each one of these loops is sharpened differently, so we're going to run each of these on each one of these saws. So, this will be the highway cylinder 55. Already thinking our best results are going to be with 325 on these guys. But one more saw. Now it's time to swap some parts around. Now I'm more curious about the results with 3/8 between the 50 and the 55, so we're going to do them first. Definitely does not have the torque the 50 does. There, now we've got everything swapped around. We've got the 3/8 on the two stock saws, and the Huskies are wearing the matching 325. Since we're running a little low on wood, we'll start with the Huskies, then we'll run the other two. I think the 325 bone stock is stronger than that 55 with the highway jug. Now for the 50. That thing is just plain strong. Now let's run the two stock saws with 3/8, which they're really not meant for. Start with the 590. This is 51cc. This is 45 mil bore. That should give you a pretty good idea of just how much stronger those two built saws are than these guys. Let's see what the 325 is. Definitely not a bad running saw, but it's nowhere near as strong as the other two. So what did we learn yesterday with these four saws? Clearly, the 55 is a lot stronger than I give it credit for. That 50 with the 5000 top end is an absolute rocket. And those two stock saws really did not like 3/8 chain at all. Clearly, with this 50, I've probably built the closest thing on this chassis I've ever built to a 254. And I really don't expect to actually be able to match a 254 because this has 2 mil less stroke, but this 50 is significantly stronger than this 55, and I think it's going to close the gap up very well. So the next time that I run these chassis as saws, those guys are going to stay home because while they are stock, there's potential to port them. They're both quite rare, so I'm going to leave them running just the way they are, and they can go on the shelf. Those are saws for the saw library. This 50, this literally was a box of parts that I almost threw away probably 4 or 5 times in the last couple of years. Because these cases had mag rot pretty bad, and really it wasn't worth putting a whole lot of time and effort into until I found this top end, and it was like, well, this has got the smaller bore to match that smaller bore cylinder, so we don't have as much volume in the cases, and then I did a bunch of work inside the case as well. It's not just the crank that's different in here. But this here old girl turned out to be a heck of a lot more than a box of parts to throw away. So the next time we do testing, we'll bring this guy, even though we know that it's not going to win anything. This 50, we're very interested to see where it ends up. And we'll bring Dad's old 254. This thing is essentially a stock 254. It has a very mild muffler mod on the exterior of the muffler. It's not gutted. This thing has a couple of seasons of use on it, probably 2,000-3,000 hours on it. It's still quite healthy. It still makes 180 pounds of compression, but this is essentially what you're going to find if you find an old partially used up 254. And the thing is, this box stock made 4.1 horse. This one's a 93. This 55, the best they ever did was 3.3. So to bridge that gap and get the 55 or that 50 to meet this is not a simple task for a saw that's still workable. Like, this thing is a little bit beyond what you'd expect for a normal work saw build. You know, the full circle crank is kind of overboard, but it was one of those things. I was looking at the crank, I was looking at the lathe, I was, yeah, I can do this. So I did it. And this saw, from what I've run it so far, behaves very well, and you could go and do firewood with it. It's not super, super hot. There is quite a bit of potential left in it because I have not machined that cylinder yet. It's still at 4 to 6 thou squish. So it needs a base cut, then the timing needs to be corrected. It's still at stock timing numbers. I have done some port work on it, but I did not change any numbers from stock. We widened the intake, blended the lower transfers a bit, cleaned up the exhaust, but no numbers actually got changed in this cylinder. So this is a little bit better than a stock Partner 5000 as far as the cylinder is concerned, but our main changes are in the case. We've got the full circle crank. I filled in the areas in the crankcase that normally feed the cylinder. So if you look at this 55 bottom end, these areas here that normally feed into the bottom of the open port have all been filled in on this case because they're not used. Because this is a side fed transfer cylinder, not a bottom fed. There is a version of the 590 jug that is set up the same as this highway cylinder, where it is a partial bottom fed, partial side fed. I don't have that one. This thing, for as much as it is this highway cylinder, it is a closed port, but it does not have proper port shapes. What they did is they closed in an open port jug, and they added a divider to it to restrict flow even more. But this does not have proper open port shaping. These ports are straight up, 90-degree turn, just like an open port cylinder. So this jug has been 100% disappointing ever since the first time I got a hold of it. And when I initially put this saw together, I put it out of the box. This thing had 60 thou squish at no base gasket, and it was not as strong as a stock 55. Where it's sitting now, 028 super piston. It's got a HDA 120 off of 262. It's got a velocity stack on it. It's got the good old muffler mod. It actually runs pretty damn good. I'm impressed with where it's at. It's a lot stronger than a stock 55, but it's still not where it should be with the parts that I've put into it. And I don't think it's ever going to be with just the design of that cylinder.